Hi folks, welcome to the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast by Gary Ryan from Organisations That Matter. In this podcast, Gary shares everything about servant leadership, service leadership, authentic leadership, how to create high performance cultures, service excellence, and life balance. Here's your host, Gary Ryan.
Thank you, Sienna, for your lovely introduction. Folks, I'm absolutely delighted to be here with my very good friend, Alan Wong, who's in Hong Kong and has a fascinating, unbelievable, successful journey since he left Australia some 15 or so years ago to return to Hong Kong. 20 now. There you go. How time flies. God, we were so young, Alan, weren't we?
Yes.
Folks, Alan is the founder and principal business advisor at ToAsia.biz. So get that in your mind, ToAsia.biz, and a startup mentor with over 20 years experience. There you go. There's our 20 years in the software industry. He specializes in helping foreign tech companies get on the ground in Asia, especially in Hong Kong, China, Australia, and Singapore. He provides business consulting, go-to-market strategies, and founder mentoring to help them achieve profitability, which is clearly important, and growth in the region. As a former regional director and vice president at various software companies, Alan has built and led successful sales teams, and I've witnessed this myself, folks, and regional offices in and throughout APAC, achieving profitability within 12 to 18 months, which is extraordinary, and creating over $1 billion in shareholder value, and then successfully exiting from those businesses. He is absolutely passionate about cultivating a positive and collaborative culture that is based on care too. He's very passionate about caring for people that work with Alan and developing transparent processes and nurturing young talent. He's also PMP certified for over 10 years and involved with major IT transformation projects for now over 15 years. Welcome, Alan. Mate, with that journey, what can you tell us about some of the unicorns that you've been involved with bringing to Asia?
Good morning, Gary. So, very, very excited and happy to be here. I know we postponed this a few times, but we're finally here. Yeah, which is great news. Yeah, so I guess I go through the journeys of a lot of people working in IT, like back, when we said 20 years ago when we started in the year 2000, where my first ticket to Hong Kong was working with a US software company, and being a consultant. Because back then, being a consultant where you carry your suitcase flying from here to there was the thing to do. Yeah. And then 15 years later, I joined a German startup and working with them towards a unicorn status because, again, in those years, being part of a unicorn was the thing to do. So I was sort of more like chasing my dreams, and try out, because I personally like to try out everything, and then finally get to live that dream is really amazing. So working in a unicorn company is very exciting because it's a normal company where they get an influx of funds from VCs, and they're chasing for hyper growth. Yeah. Now, usually, it's not. It sounds fun on paper, but sometimes when you're in it, when you're every day being chased over your head about quotas, sales, revenue, it is a bit pressurized. Yeah. And then I must say, sometimes in the company, because there's so much, I would say, money and beneficial things involved. So sometimes company can get a little bit messy. And this is the point where certain unicorn company don't get over that line when they reach that status. They couldn't get to the next point where it gets them to an IPO. So now with ToAsia, it's a consulting I started this year. It's more about helping company to build sustainable growth, because I'm always a believer of sustainability. Like, you can grow when you have hyper growth, you're gonna shoot up, but you have a period where you come down and consolidate. I mean, just like our world stock market, anything in this world, everything booms and then it pendulum overswings and then it always come down the other way.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, and when these things happen, it's very damaging to the economy, very damaging to a lot of families, yeah, as well, because people are being laid
Yes.
off, all that happen. So I'm a big believer of companies that can achieve sustainable profits and grow in a sustainable way with a very strong foundation.
Yeah, and you've got a different term for them. You rather than a unicorn, you
Yeah,
tend to call them
a zebra, so which is what I have
as as
found a
zebra.
shirt for the podcast of zebra companies now, which is chasing more profitability, because a profitable company can never go bust. Yeah, so having that buffer,
That's right.
if the founder or the stakeholders are looking to sell or exit in future, they can choose to do so whenever they like. So they're not being forced to do so. It's actually better for the stakeholders and shareholders for these kind of companies. So a separate enterprise, I think, is the
Yes.
new unicorn these days.
Yes. And now to match your zebra, I was nearly going to get a big, thick black marker and put it across my white shirt here so that I could look like a zebra as well,
Yeah.
Alan. And so what that means is, from a ToAsia perspective, is that organisations are already existing and have been looking to get into Asia, but have not been able to work out how to do it. You are the go-to place for them, because it's not necessarily about attracting those unicorns only. Like ToAsia is really about well-established businesses, but businesses that just for whatever reason haven't been able to break into Asia. Having your 20 years on the ground, feet on the ground, understand how everything works. Obviously, you can speak the language and you're able to do that networking and effectively represent them. And I think that's probably something worth explaining, how ToAsia works for businesses. Alan?
Yeah. I would like to spend a little bit of time just to go back to my story. Yeah. So I was born in Hong Kong and
Yes.
migrated to Australia when I was about 11 years old. Yeah. Where I sort of grew up.
Yes.
And then I think since 1993, when I was in year 9, after we have our citizenship, I travel back to Hong Kong regularly to visit my grandmother and other relatives and friends. Now, one of the things I noticed is that, hey, there are some really good things in Australia that I'm enjoying, like brands and everyday companies or food companies that I'm enjoying, but I'm not seeing in Hong Kong. And as I travel around Asia
Right.
more, I'm seeing, hey, it's not in those places too. Why is that? Because the only big brands that we see are like McDonald's, yeah, Wendy's back in the days, and Subway and so
Yes.
on. These really big chains, which most of them originated from America. Now,
Yes.
they as I grow up more and sort of venture into the business world, I realized that one of the things these companies do very well is the localization. So I always like to take the McDonald's sample.
Mm.
Like anywhere you go around the world, you always have your Big Mac and cheeseburgers, which is their core menu. And then you have all these other things. So like Hong Kong, when you go to a breakfast menu, you can actually have macaroni, which is a very local thing, like soup base with chicken soup, macaroni. It's a very local thing. And then when you go to China,
Wow.
in the dinner menu, you can actually order rice with a beef patty. So a rice with beef patty and not
Yes.
not bread, because that's the primary thing that they consume. And then you go to Germany, they serve beer as well. So one of the things I
Yes.
found, these
Yes.
successful brands that expand very well, it's that they do localization really well, and most of them are American
Mm.
companies.
Mm.
And growing up from Australia, obviously my heart, always wanted to see, hey, some of these Australia brands to do well. I haven't seen them around, um, and and sometimes when I see them venture or look in the news in Bloomberg, I see, oh, Australian companies pulling out of Asia after X amount of years. Yeah, so it's
Mm.
really
Mm.
saddening sometimes to see that. Maybe it's it's me or maybe I see it differently. Sometimes I always wonder, how could they lose that much money in that many years? I mean, to me, I
Yes.
feel, I mean, as humble as I am, I feel it's really not that hard to grow a business, right? If you have a foreign established brand and bring it here and you find the niche and the market of where that product is, localize it enough, grow a presence here so you have local representatives to support your product, and
Mm.
then just go organically and go out there and tell people about the product. Um, you know, and this is how I have been demonstrating to many companies when I work with the US software company and the German software company. It's essentially what I did with them, and it was very successful. With the
Yes.
recent one with the European startup, we did 8 figures of revenue just within 2 years. Yeah, so
Yes.
obviously they have a good product and to match. Yeah, but then, even with a good product, things don't grow in a regional market. Like you can't just bring it to Singapore, go to Indonesia, expected someone to give attention to it. So you also need a local presence, yeah, to grow the local team, so that people have a relationship with you where you represent the product. Because
Yes.
like we always talk about people do business with people. We don't do business with your product. Yeah, because like Gary, you have the Yes for Success book behind you. For me, when I look at that book, I see you, because
Mm.
you're the author of that book, and you had that program. So it's all about the people. And then we are a big believer in localizing into the markets, and then really get deep into the market.
So, Ellen, one of the beauties of having that localized aspect is actually having you with your feet on the ground to create that localized presence. And that's one of the benefits of folk actually working with you and engaging with you, is to get someone on the ground literally in your shoes.
Yeah. Um, a lot of startups that I mentor and talk to, when I talk to them localization, they tell me we've done it. We got a freelance translator on Fiverr, and they translated our website into local language, and our product is translated as well. So I think it's correct in some way. You do the translation is 60% of the way. You also need
Yes.
localization in a way that beyond translation. So the language that you use on ChatGPT or even Google, right? Um, the translation is not perfect. Like sometimes when you translate a phrase in English, say a punchline that really means something in English, after you translate it, it means nothing. It sounds strange,
Yes.
especially things like a sales punchline. Yeah. So you really
Yes.
need to
Yes.
localize it in a way that it means something to the locals. So I think that's like the first part about translation, and then that will get you 75% of the way, and the other 25, it's really having the right people on the ground that has the network, and then also has the passion to really help you promote your product. I remember
Yes.
3 years ago when I started working with the German startup. It was COVID, so I couldn't do the things that I was really good at, like going to event, giving out business cards, and pitching for the company or brand that I'm representing overseas. So my job was to expand the whole of APAC. So I can only do that in Hong Kong. And
Yes.
then back then there was also the mask order, so we have to wear a mask,
Yes.
which it does put a little bit of filter on the engagement when you talk to people. But still, we were
Of
doing it.
course.
We were rolling up our sleeves. I remember going to an exhibition, which not a lot of exhibitors there, and we were handing out each card one by one. Yeah, just to get people aware of the name and brand. Yeah, so I mean, this is like the first
Yes.
step. And then luckily we have social medias like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all these different channels that you can use that to leverage with your physical efforts of brand awareness. So starting with that, and then not long after, I picked up a really good deal in Hong Kong, which kickstarted everything. Yeah, so I
Yes.
guess the story is that with every expansion, every startup, there is that groundwork. Yeah, and then
Yes.
once you've done enough, that first from 0 to 1, yep, not think about 100 yet, but you always need to get to
Yes.
from 0 to 1. When you get to that 1, 100 will come, yeah, because you would get the hang and get the momentum. So for me, it's the same. We got to that 1, a really big
Yes.
deal coming out from Hong Kong, and they were actually managing a lot of retail outlets in the region, and really helped me kickstart the whole regional business here, where I grew to about 20 people across Japan,
Yeah.
India, Australia, Indonesia, Thailand, and Singapore.
Oh, it was a huge success. It was a remarkable journey for those of us that have followed you, and for those of us that do follow you, and certainly see your activity on LinkedIn, for example, is you are the networking king. You know how to network. You're out there networking all the time, and which is part of fun of how we've known each other. Because the very very first time I ever met you.
Yeah.
You were working at a conference ringing the bell to get people to go back into the session, which was, and it's, here you are, either, fully involved in putting big events on yourself, or certainly being present as a conference stakeholder and all of those sorts of things these days. But certainly the networking side that you do, you're absolutely the king of networking throughout Hong Kong and Asia, Alan. And it's such an important thing. And for some of our listeners for whom networking is an important role, and I would argue it's important for everybody. What are one or two clear tips that you have for authentic networking, Alan? Yes for Success, How to Achieve Life Harmony and Fulfillment is my new book. It's out now. Check out the link in the show notes for all the details of how to get the new book, Yes for Success, How to Achieve Life Harmony and Fulfillment. It's going to teach you a whole heap of strategies around how to have increased happiness now and into the future for your life. If not for you, get it for someone else that might be struggling or floating along in life. This book works. And as you can see, folks, the book debuted at number 6 on Amazon. So people have reacted to it very positively. Check it out. You can get your copy too. Now let's return to our interview with Alan Wong.
So again, a little story. I started doing or going to these conferences as more of a sales or marketing kind of representative, I would say around 15 years ago, because I started as a consultant and I sort of moved into the sales path. Now, I remember the first few conferences that I went to, my boss asked me to, hey, get as many business cards as you like, as you can. So I was going everywhere just saying, hey, my name is Alan, can I have your card? So the purpose of just getting business card was not helpful. Yeah. And then what happened is you find some people who are really good that you can get along with and click and talk to more. And then what happened is that throughout the whole event, you tend to stick with those people because, hey, out there, you don't know who is out there and you feel embarrassed, but you stick to the people that you feel comfortable with. And then after a few years of doing that, I feel, it gets me by. Yeah. And then, I give the boss 30 business card, enter it into CRM, but it's not actually achieving any results. Yeah. So what happened is when I actually become the leader of a particular team and think about, hey, how I can do things effectively, it's I now go to events and try to have meaningful conversation and focusing on the quality but not quantity. So you would rather make some like 3 to 5 really good friends there. I mean, people who are willing to tell you story when you tell them your story, and just go from there rather than going out and try to meet 20 people, because you're not going to remember them when you come back, yeah, and they're not going to remember you.
Yes.
So focusing on the quality now is really important. And the other tips is when you go to these association and events, one of the things I like to do to go deeper is that I I want to get into the organizing committee and offer some
Yes.
voluntary kind of work that I can offer, which is of value to them, so that I can get into the committee or something like that. So I was in the exco of the Hong Kong exhibition industry for about, I think, more than 5 years. So during that time,
Yes.
networking was a lot easier, because when you're in the exco,
Yes.
they are like, hey, let's welcome our executive committee members on stage, blah, 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 and do a toasting for us. So when people hear your name, see you out there during the breaks and the networking session, people come to you, say, oh, you're one of the exco, yeah? So it makes networking a lot easier when people come to
Yes.
you, yeah? So it's like when you're
Yes.
doing a keynote, it has the same effect. After you do a keynote, people will come to you and say, hey, you had a really good talk, very interesting topic. So it's starting from the other side, yeah, where you are getting,
Yes.
try to get to know people, but build your way into that event so that you are on the host side, and then people will
Yes.
come to know the host. So this will make networking a lot easier. So I would say focus on the quality and try to get on the host side.
Yeah. They're two fantastic tips, Alan, because it makes you the magnet. It makes you the magnet, and people are coming to network with you. And to a degree, they're qualified because they've identified there's something about speaking with you that they want to have some sort of mutual benefit from. So it is a really, really clever tactic to get yourself involved in that committee. As you say, you get introduced on stage, then people know who you are, and then they want to come up. And particularly for people that might be less outgoing and not as naturally inclined toward the networking activities, a really, really clever strategy to go and do that. And of course, it definitely makes you look like someone because you are someone. And we're not saying that people aren't anyone anyway, but I'm sure the listeners will understand what I mean by it makes you look like being someone important. That's for
Yeah.
sure. When
So
they come and do
I
that.
would say I would say growing up, I have more of an introvert kind of character. Yeah, but as I move into more sales role, doing more presentation and public speaking, I sort of grow into like get a bit better. I'm not so much an extrovert where hey let's go to the bar after this. Not so much that type, but I think I'm in the middle, and I have found a sweet spot in my character, where I'm really likable by people. Like people like to talk to you, and also
Yes.
one of the things that I do myself, like every day, regardless working or not, is to, like I said, I like to put my feet into the water in different things, so that I
Yes.
have an experience, and then you actually create more topics for you to talk to people. So there's one trick in networking as well. When you talk to people, you say, hey, you know it looks like that you like basketball, and then you can talk about NBA. Yeah, it looks like you like
Yes.
F1
Yes.
racing, and then you can talk about Hamilton or something like that. And then so it's really important that you have a range of hobbies. Yeah, when you want to go networking, so that
Yes.
you have topics to carry on with people when you pick up that they have a particular interest in certain topics. I think that's really important as
I
well.
mean, absolutely. And, you could even talk about doing push ups because I've
Yeah.
seen videos of you doing push ups,
Yeah. So
staying fit and
I can
strong.
talk
And
to people about fitness as well. Yeah. So I think
yes, you can.
I've been keeping shape quite well recently, and then all these things do help as well. Like I'm a big Arsenal fans, and then during the weekend, I tell people I either dress up in a professional, like like an IT professional kind of way, or I wear an Arsenal jersey because I have like
Yes.
tens of those jerseys, and on the weekend I always wear a jersey, right?
Yeah.
And because like on the street there are like expats and Englishmen and people who follow soccer, they'll say, hey, high five, Arsenal doing well. So again, doing these kind of things, create a sort of topic for people. So even when I go and go
Oh,
to my kids' parties and network with the parents. He said, "Oh, Arsenal, they're doing real well." Or, "Oh, I'm an Arsenal fan too." So it connects you in a different way. So I think that's why having that different hobby is really important.
oh, absolutely. Again, it's so important to have the breadth of character, and you're also a parent, and you're involved with very heavily with both of your children, and we see soccer games and swimming events and all of those sorts of things that from a parent's perspective, and obviously funding your children's education. You've got that breadth of character, and I think it's important for people who would be considering engaging you to work with them from a ToAsia perspective, Alan, is to understand that the human being that they would be working with is a solid, authentic, values-driven human being. For the periods when you've had your 20 staff that you mentioned earlier, I know you fought very hard for all of those staff to be able to retain their jobs throughout the pandemic when it first hit, and lots of organisations were either making people redundant or standing them down or putting pressure on a unicorn situation to have less staff and save more money. And I know as a fact that you worked extremely hard to keep the people in the business. And as a result of that, in fact, coming out of the pandemic, sustained a huge amount of growth through that period because you had the people who understood the product to keep going. So anyone out there listening or watching today's interview is going to know that if you've got any doubts about going into Asia, because, who will I be dealing with? Well, I can absolutely vouch and promise that Alan Wong is a human being that's absolutely got great integrity and authenticity and passion and energy, and is willing to do the hard work as well, as well as his Arsenal cheering and, and being a dad. He's willing to put in the hard work because again, since we first met each other in the early 2000s, he's been someone the entire journey that's been very willing to work. And honestly, Alan, it's been just such a pleasure to witness your career since we did meet all those years ago, and to see everything you do work. And it's not as if any of that success has been easy. You've always been prepared to do the hard yards, get to understand people, and create success over time. And I guess that's one of the reasons why, if we circle back to the zebra, is the more sustainable approach to a business with the way the economies are around the world with interest rates and all those sorts of things. Clearly, venture capitalists are keeping their hands in their pockets a little bit longer at the moment, quite understandably so. And the zebra approach, as you've described it, is one that's going to see organisations for decades rather than just coming and going, as you've highlighted earlier. Is there one? What would be the first step that folk would need to make if they've been sitting there, wanting to break into Asia, but just literally haven't been able to find the first step? What would you say the first step is, Alan?
So I think, like many things, the first step is really to decide that you want to expand to Asia. That's what we tell a lot of founders and startup. Don't go half about it. Decide, and we usually have like a playbook. Like, this is the amount I think the minimum that each company needs to invest, and this is the time you can expect. I mean, if things go according to plan, you can expect we get to a break even, and then this is the time that you can expect to get a cash flow positive. It's slightly different for each company depending on their product and the industry, that we sort of draw
Yes.
out and give that forecast. But I think typically what would be realistic would be like a 2-year horizon where they can achieve a break even. ideally. In an ideal
Yep.
situation
Yep.
where, this is like having a good product, that they have already
Yes.
in their own country that is selling well. They have a good team to support the product, because often when product comes to Asia, for example, if you have an accounting kind of software, the way accounting standard works in Australia is very different to Indonesia or Singapore or Hong Kong. So there always need to be some
Yes.
product changes. And a lot of people are scared of these changes, but sometimes maybe a little bit of a tweak and it can fit the market, and then it will help them get that head start. So so deciding to come to Asia and really willing to do it, it's really important. And getting to know the Asia landscape is really important, which is what we do on our LinkedIn page for ToAsia, that we share a lot
Yes.
of news about tech companies, business news, so that you sort of understand. It's very important to understand the environment and landscape that you are about to jump into. So sometimes it's about
Yes.
good news, sometimes it's about not so good news. But I think the trend is pretty clear that most of the economic growth over the next 10 to 20 years will be around Asia. Because obviously you have China,
Yeah.
already very big, second biggest economy, and then you have Japan doing some catch up in third place. And I think Japan's going to make a big comeback when we get to the robotics and AI era, when we really mature into that. I think Japan will come back, because they've been into the robot stuff for many years, but they were just way ahead of the market. And then there's the
Yeah.
great big India, which is going to grow bigger or as big as China. And then you have other countries
Yes.
like Indonesia, which is also doing very well. So you have these
Yeah.
mega
And obviously
economies in
Asia. Yeah.
Asia. Yeah, you have these mega economies in Asia that's going to bring a lot of momentum into the APAC region, and which is why I think Australia will be a good beneficiary, being down under, but also part
Yes.
of this APAC group, and also be able to
Yes.
travel within a relatively closed time zone, because it's very difficult for a
Yes.
European company or US company to service Asia, because of the time difference is more than 8
Yes.
hours. But with Australia, places like Perth, which is, has the same time zone as Singapore and Hong Kong, it's actually relatively easy. So that's why now I have a focus, and also doing something to my heart, is to help Australian startup or SaaS company, to help them expand into Asia more effectively.
I think, Alan, with your point there, is that I think everyone knows the numbers are big in Asia, but the actual size of the market, really, say from an Australian perspective, is so big that the opportunities are limitless if you can find your way in there in the first place. And as you say, you've got to make that conscious decision first up. You make the decision, be willing to put the investment in. But if you've got the right people, you've got the right product, and you're prepared to localize, like you said right at the very outset of our conversation, Alan, then you've got all the ducks lined up. It's going to be hard to fail.
Yeah,
I think that's the key lesson here. If you're prepared to do those things, it's something really wrong would have to happen for you to actually fail, because you've got, success is just going to come in a more sustainable way, as you've
yeah.
described all the way through. So, Alan, if we're wrapping up our conversation now, what would be some of the best ways? Because, folks, we'll make sure in the show links we've got all the links for you to be able to go and connect with Alan. But what would be one or two that you'd like to share with folks?
So I think finding the right partner to help you getting into Asia is really important, because I always say, actually, 80% of my current business comes from referrals, and the other 20% come from people seeing what I do, being active, how I help companies grow on LinkedIn, and they make an inquiry. But it's a very early stage, because we were still building trust. But recently I've been reached by a UK company, where they heard my Australian accent and say, "Hey, I got trust there right away. So it does
Yes.
help, with my background, living in Australia, growing up for over 15 years, and now also being in Asia and able to speak Chinese, and obviously a lot of companies looking to grow into China. And then, I've taken lots of companies, regional offices in China, and grow a team there. So I think finding the right person, it's important. And
Yes.
I would say, in my opinion, finding someone that has an Asian face will actually, without being racist or anything, yeah, just simply saying an Asian face will get you in deep into the market you want to get into, much quicker. Yeah. It's sort of
Yes.
like there are a lot of successful expats that are doing well in Singapore and Hong Kong, but a lot of them are very senior level, where they need to hire someone local to help them do the groundwork. Yeah. and
Yes.
and all
Yes.
of that. So finding someone Asian for your company, and the right partner who has really done this before, really help. Now, one of the things, on my profile, a lot of people ask me, it's, hey, 100% record. How can you say that? My answer to that is, I I really like. I only work with a handful of companies, yeah, because I've been very loyal. A lot of those
Yes.
companies, I've been with them for multiple years, and the first one was the US company. I've been with them over 16 years. So I haven't really had a failed case, even with the companies I'm just helping. I haven't had a failed case where, they can't really get on the ground, they can't expand, they can't get any revenue at all. So it is a true. So I want to sort of keep my record. So this is talking about companies that engage me to really build the ground business. Yeah, build the ground business, help them set up the
Yes.
office, set up that presence, because I go step by step. Like, even the office, I find an
Mm.
address that will make people's jaw drop when they first see your business card. So,
Yes.
Gary, if you tell me Yes for
Yes.
Success company, I give a business card, hey, I'm representing Yes for Success, they will drop their jaw and say, oh, you guys are in that building. We are like, I
Yes.
help you put an address like in the Empire State Building, where people look at it, of say Hong
Yeah.
Kong,
Yeah.
and they will look at
Yeah.
it and jaw drop, because that gives people the attention, and they'll remember you, right? And then also gives you
Yes.
a gap to exploit the conversation further. So being Asian,
Yes.
and for someone like myself who cares about these details, because knowing Asian culture, they like glamorous things.
Yes.
Maybe Westerners is the same too, yeah. But they like glamorous things. So when you have that little bit of extra in there, it really helps. So I would say, just to summarize, if you're working with someone, make sure people can tell you these kind of details, yeah, what they do, that
Yes.
can make a difference for your company, for your brand, to the people that you approach, that you have confidence that they become the ambassador of your company in Asia. I think that's a really important, um, element or sign to look for.
Absolutely. And, I'm so delighted that we had the opportunity to have this chance to have our chat today, Alan, and for people, hopefully, to learn more about what ToAsia does and what Alan Wong does, and how you could potentially represent their business to maintain that 100% record, because that's good. That's in everyone's
Yeah.
interest to understand the detail as you've described, to be able to do that. I want to thank you for giving up your time to share with my audience today. So thank you for coming along, Alan.
Thank you, Gary, for the great opportunity. It's always good to see you.
Well, it absolutely is, and we continue to catch up as we do going forward for sure. So, folks, I've been very, very lucky to have Alan Wong from ToAsia.biz join us. You'll find all of Alan's links in the show notes, so his LinkedIn and, of course, ToAsia.biz for you to be able to reach out and contact him. Folks, as Alan mentioned throughout our interview, that I have released my brand new book called Yes for Success, How to Achieve Life, Harmony and Fulfillment. You can find it on Amazon and also through yesforsuccess.guru. If you want to get your copy, get one now. It'll help you to clarify your life make sure that you are on the path that's right for you. And if you're not sure, it'll help you work out if you are on the right path. And clearly, if you are a little bit lost or floundering or floating through life, it's going to help you find the path that's right for you. Also, folks, please like and subscribe to the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast. That's quite simple. Just click the links, subscribe, and give us a thumbs up. Please feel free to share this with people in your network as well. And of course, if you'd like to sign up for our newsletter, please go to orgsthatmatter.com/newsletter. Once again, I'm Gary Ryan, your host from Organisations That Matter and the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast. We've had our special guest today, Alan Wong from ToAsia.biz, and we look forward to seeing you all and having you hear us in the next episode. Bye.